Welcome to the Got Game University podcast, Just the Tip Tuesday. I'm Ryan Smith. Mike is not going to be with us today. It's just me this week shooting, but uh, I think we've got a good podcast episode for you this week. As I've been kind of studying, getting ready for elk season, I've been studying the Elk Nut app, just kind of trying to refresh, see just make sure I've got all my information right, make sure when I get into the different situations I'm good to go this elk season this September. And something has kind of stood out. I know that Paul talks about the slow play a lot. He did talk about the advertising sequence, but the advertising sequence is one of my favorite sequences to use, especially early season. When you go through and study it in the app, Paul goes into way more detail than I'm capable of doing. But I was just going to go into kind of how I use the advertising sequence, what kind of works for us, and kind of not compare it to Paul's on the Elk Nut app, because we do it the exact same way. It's just we have a different approach of finding the elk, or doing uh, you know just finding the elk really. And so on the advertising sequence, it's a great sequence to use in early season. That's when I really like to use it. It's when things are kind of quiet, bulls aren't bugling a lot. That early season, there isn't any cows in estrus, and so you're just walking around a lot, can't find anything. And so I really like this. I use this for glassing elk. I glass a bull moving from their feeding area to their bedding area. Paul, he likes to find the elk. He goes, I know where they're bedded, and I go do this sequence. I just know they're there. For us, or for me, I've seen bedding areas, seen elk in them, and then when I get back there, they're not there, or different things. And so it works really well for me when it comes to glassing them. I'm on this ridge, and I glass the elk going up the one side, and I just kind of wait, kind of watch, see where they enter the trees. And from my experience, where they enter the trees, leaving their bed or their feeding area, they don't go very far, in those trees. It's not like they go miles in the trees. They just kind of get in that shade, kind of bed down in there. And so, from this ridge over, we use Onyx to kind of try to pinpoint where that bull bedded down on this hill. And then we kind of make the play around and try to make this advertising sequence set up. Uh, and we've done it a lot, but Paul in the Elk Nut app talks about being within 150 yards, and I'll tell you that's key. If you're too far away, it's not as effective. If you can get into that 150, 100 yards window where you're far enough away, you're not spooking them out, but you're close enough that you're not a threat to that elk, you do really well. It's really actually super successful. And so what we do is we sneak in where we kind of saw that bull come into the trees, and we sneak into that range, that 150-yard range, and we sit down and we kind of start advertising ourselves. It's early season, bulls are advertising themselves, trying to find cows, tell them that they're kind of the hot shot, let everybody know that they're there. And so you kind of sneak in above this bull and you start advertising yourself. So you're just doing, small bugle here, and you do some raking, maybe another small bugle, and you do that. You do a little sequence for 3 minutes, is what we do, and then maybe go quiet for 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and then maybe start up again. Just some small bugles. I call them lazy bugles. Kind of like we're just kind of hanging out. We want people to know we're there, but uh, we're also kind of resting too. We came from our feeding area also, and so just kind of these lazy bugles. And sometimes you get a bull, replies back, within 15 minutes or sooner or later. But in my experience, usually they just stay quiet. It's almost like they don't like us there, but they're like, I'm chilling here. I'm just gonna, rest. Like, I don't want to mess with you right now. Like, let's see if he goes away. But, me being the hunter that I am, you just sit up there and you stay persistent. You just keep kind of bugling, raking, go for a break, and you just kind of keep going. And, I've had this sequence go for 45 minutes, and then, before you know it, that bull just kind of works his way up slowly. He comes up to you, and, hopefully he presents a shot to the shooter or to you if you're solo. And so that's kind of the strategy of the advertising sequence is you're a lone bull, advertising yourself. And so for us, with that early season when bulls, aren't making as much noise, there's not cows in estrus. We're just in there trying to show people that we're here. We're advertising ourselves and letting the cows know, like, we're here to party. And it really seems to work for us. That's definitely our go-to early season, strategy that we like to do. If you have a bedding area that man, the elk really like to bed down here, get within 150 yards and try this. See if you can get a bull to come to you. For us, like I said, we've gone to different bedding areas. We've seen elk before. They're never quite in the same spot, it seems like. Not always, depending on the area. But man, being able to glass them, see where they enter, just seems to work really well for us. And, the onyx, we shoot straight across. We kind of find the trees that they're in. We pinpoint that, mark that. And then you can use your yardage from your onyx from where you're standing as you're sneaking in to kind of give you your reference range to where you are compared to your mark that you made. And so something, that we've done too, because we think that 150 yards is key for us. And so what we'll do is we'll get to kind of that 150 yards on the onyx. We'll do that for 20, 30 minutes. And if nothing happens within that time, we kind of just stand up and we move another 50 yards. And then we do the sequence again. And, we just kind of do it for 30 minutes. We know there's a bull in there. We're just trying to get him, riled up enough that he wants to come engage with us. He's just like, it's almost like, I'm tired of you. Eventually he's in his bed and he's like, I've just got to come check out what this guy is. Like, he's driving me nuts, or he just wants to come size us up. Either way, we're letting him know we're there. And so we move that 50 yards, and then, we do that for 30 minutes again. And if not, maybe our yardage is a little off, and so maybe we'll move up again, or we'll just go a little longer. But I think we've moved, 50 yards just really slow 3 times, and got in the third time, done the same sequence, and had a bull come in. And so for early season, give it a try. Download the Elknut app. Paul has, way more detail on the advertising sequence than I do. It's really, beneficial. You can see, there's just a lot of write-up on it. And so if you want more information on the advertising sequence, definitely check it out there. But that's just a way that we've took advantage of the advertising sequence is by glassing across the canyon, watching elk, not getting too crazy, just seeing where they go to bed, and then we make our play from there. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you have a successful September. Good luck to everyone, and hopefully we can get a few more of these out during September that you guys can enjoy. But we appreciate you listening, and good luck this year.